It was the summer of 2014. I just turned 29, and a buddy of mine invited me to a 4th of July cookout at his sister's place. I almost didn't go. I just finished a rough project at work and was thinking of laying low for the weekend. But something told me to show up. One of those random decisions that ends up changing your whole life. Lila was there, standing by the cooler, digging around for a soda. She was wearing this old band t-shirt and cut-off jeans, and when she turned around, she had this look in her eye, like she was constantly in on a joke nobody else had figured out yet. We ended up talking over burnt hot dogs and warm beer, and I was hooked. She was sharp, funny in this dry, unbothered way, and didn't care what anyone thought of her. I liked that. I still do. We started seeing each other not long after that. Our first real date was a pizza place that didn't take cards, so I had to run to an ATM halfway through the meal. She still makes fun of me for that. Things moved quickly, but not in a chaotic way. We just clicked. We were comfortable around each other from the start. No games. No pretending to be cooler or more interesting than we were. We moved in together after a year and got married about 2 years after that. Small ceremony, just close friends and family in a rented cabin up north. It was simple, intimate, and completely us. We've been married for just over 6 years now. No kids, though we've talked about it here and there. For now, it's just the two of us and our mutt, Charlie, a rescue dog who thinks he's a lapdog despite being 60 pounds of muscle and fur. Lila works as a wellness coach and meal planner. She's all about clean eating, balanced living, that kind of stuff. I'm in supply chain management for a regional distributor. We handle everything from office supplies to industrial parts. Not the most glamorous gig, but it pays the bills and keeps me busy. We have a decent house in a quiet neighborhood on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, 3 bedrooms, fenced yard, a back deck with a grill I swear I'll learn to use properly one day. Our days are pretty routine, and I've come to appreciate that more than I expected. Mornings usually start with coffee, her almond milk latte, my black. She does yoga in the spare room while I scroll through news headlines. We eat breakfast together if we have time, and then we both head out. Evenings are calm. Dinner, Netflix, sometimes a walk if the weather's good. Fridays we order Thai food and pick a bad movie to roast. Sundays we hit the farmer's market and do laundry. It's a rhythm that's become second nature. She's always been the more social one. Loves having people over, always planning little dinner parties or meetups with her friends. I'm more of an introvert, happy with a book or a quiet evening on the patio. But we balance each other out in a way that works. That's us. That's the life we've built together. And for a long time, I really thought it was everything I ever wanted. So I figured I'd keep going, since putting this down in writing has been helping me see things more clearly. Not just about where we are now, but how we got here. Lila and I have always had a kind of quiet understanding between us. We don't need big declarations or over-the-top gestures. She's not the kind of person who wants roses on every anniversary or surprise trips to Paris. She wants to be seen, heard, and valued, something I've always tried to give her. In turn, she makes life feel warmer, more lived in. We've built a comfortable little world together. Our home is modest but cozy. She's got this knack for interior decorating that I'll never understand. Somehow she makes everything look like it belongs in a lifestyle magazine without trying too hard. Light gray walls, plants in every corner, that kind of modern minimalism with just enough warmth to feel human. I've added my touch too. A few framed records in the den, my childhood bookshelf in the hallway, a slightly lopsided coat rack I made one weekend on a whim. She still uses it, bless her. Most evenings, we eat together. We take turns cooking, though, if I'm honest, she's the better chef. She's really into experimenting with new recipes, especially healthy ones. There was a solid 2 months where she was obsessed with quinoa in every form imaginable. I played along, even when it tasted like damp cardboard, because the way she lights up when she's talking about antioxidants or gut health is kind of adorable. Weekends are sacred for us. Saturday mornings we usually hit the local farmer's market, get coffee from this little spot with the best almond croissants in town. Sometimes we'll drive out to a nearby trail and hike with Charlie, or just spend the afternoon in the yard. Sunday evenings are for winding down. She loves a good face mask and herbal tea. I'll be on the couch watching a documentary or finishing a novel. It's not glamorous, but it feels like home. We travel a few times a year, nothing too far. Usually long weekends to small towns, The kind with antique shops and cafes that still use chalkboard menus. Last fall we went to Asheville and stayed in this cabin up in the Blue Ridge. We drank wine by the fire, played board games, and she made me promise we'd go back every year. That was one of the best trips we've had. No distractions, no work emails, just us. She's close with her sister, Kelsey. They talk every couple of days, text constantly. I've always liked that they're tight. It's something I never really had growing up, being an only child. Lila and Kelsey are opposites in a lot of ways, but they've got that kind of bond where they can read each other with just a look. Kelsey's a little blunt sometimes, but she's been around a lot. At holidays, birthdays, random weekends. She even stayed with us for a week once while her apartment was getting renovated. Looking back, I think what I liked most about life with Lila was the consistency. The sense of knowing where we were going, even if it wasn't anywhere flashy. We weren't chasing big dreams or changing the world. We were just living, day by day, in this shared space we'd built with trust, affection, and time. At least, that's how it felt. It's kind of surreal, putting this all into words. You live your life day by day, mostly on autopilot, and don't really take stock of the routines until you pause and look back. I don't know if we ever realize how much of our life is made up of the small, quiet moments until we start unpacking them like this. By all accounts, Lila and I had a good thing going. We'd carved out our little life and found a rhythm that worked for both of us. Our friends used to tell us how in sync we seemed, like we always knew what the other was thinking. I never really thought much of that. When you live with someone long enough, you start predicting their moves. What they'll order at a restaurant, what shows they'll binge, how they'll react to the latest thing your coworker said. She'd always leave little notes for me. Not every day, just now and then. Sometimes on a post, it stuck to the bathroom mirror, other times scribbled inside my lunch bag. A quick, good luck today, or don't forget we're out of coffee. Once she wrote, you looked peaceful this morning. Made me smile. It was such a small thing, but I carried that one in my wallet for months. We didn't have fireworks every day, but honestly, who does? It wasn't a movie kind of love. It was the real kind. Quiet, habitual, patient. She knew how I took my coffee. I knew when she needed space without her asking. We weren't perfect, but we showed up for each other. She worked from home more than I did, which made sense. Her job as a wellness coach is more flexible, mostly online consultations and video check-ins. She kept a little home office set up in the sunroom, filled with plants and soft lighting. I used to joke that her workspace looked like it belonged on Pinterest. Mine, meanwhile, was a mess of receipts, pins that didn't work, and 2 monitors that constantly flickered at me like they were judging my life choices. In the evenings, she'd sometimes unwind by putting on music while prepping dinner. She loved older soul records, Al Green, Etta James, a little Marvin Gaye if she was in a mood. I'd come home and hear the sound of her chopping vegetables, singing under her breath, sometimes off-key, but always with heart. It's funny how those sounds stick in your mind. She liked yoga, I liked running. She was more of a morning person. I was a night owl. She'd want to talk right after waking up, and I'd be grunting into my coffee like a caveman. But we made it work. That was the thing, we balanced each other. At least, that's how it always felt. We hosted game nights once a month with a few friends, usually the same crew. Lila loved to play the hostess. She had this way of making everything feel intentional. She'd have little snacks out, a playlist queued up, fresh flowers in the entryway. People always told me I was lucky, and I believed them. Looking at it from the outside, you'd think we had it figured out. A couple in their 30s, settled, stable, smiling in pictures, laughing at inside jokes, arguing over where to hang the new framed print from the flea market. You know, the kind of life you aim for once you stop chasing chaos. I used to look at her sometimes, sitting across from me at dinner, and think, yeah, this is it. This is what it's supposed to feel like. I don't know exactly when it started, this feeling that something was off. There wasn't a single moment, no dramatic change. Just small things, almost unnoticeable on their own. Like a draft coming in from a window you could have sworn was shut. Lila was still Lila. She still kissed me goodbye in the mornings, still made dinner most nights, still told me about her clients, their detox diets and emotional breakthroughs. But there was something in her tone lately, something thinner. Like she was reading from a script, not really there behind the words. I tried to brush it off at first. Everyone goes through spells, right? Busy weeks, bad moods, stress from work. That's normal. But this felt different. It was like, She was always half somewhere else. The first thing I noticed was the phone. She'd always been a pretty open book, leaving her phone on the counter, not minding if I grabbed it to check the weather or Google something. Lately, though, it was always face down. And when it buzzed, she'd glance at it quick, press the side button, and put it away without saying a word. She also started spending more time out of the house, saying she had a new client she was meeting in person, which I thought was odd since most of her work was remote. At first, it was once a week, then twice. Then it was like every other day she had a meeting or a workshop or a check-in she couldn't reschedule. I asked her casually about one of them, something like, "How'd it go with that new client today?" She blinked a second too long, like she had to remember the lie. Then she smiled too quickly and said it was fine, just someone trying to lose the baby weight before summer. She was always good at saying just enough. I tried not to overthink it. I'm not the jealous type. I've never been the guy who tracks his partner or reads through messages. I always believed that if you need to spy, the relationship's already broken. But still, I couldn't ignore the feeling. I started watching a little closer, listening more, noticing how she'd stop mid-sentence sometimes when a text came in, how she suddenly needed to grab a few things from the store after dinner, even when we didn't need anything, how her mood would swing from distracted to overly affectionate depending on the day. She was always nice, never cruel, never cold, but she started complimenting me more than usual, stuff she hadn't said in years. "You look good today. I love how you always clean up after dinner." Just random praise, like she was overcompensating, or checking a box. Then one night, I got up to get a glass of water and saw her on the couch, phone in hand, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in a while. Not at me, just at the screen. She didn't notice me at first. When she did, she jumped a little, turned the phone over, and said, "Hey, couldn't sleep?" I told her I just needed water. She got up and followed me to the kitchen, started making small talk about how we should plan another weekend trip soon. But she was fidgeting with her hands, like she couldn't stop them from moving. I remember staring at her then, really staring, and thinking something's going on. I just don't know what yet. That night, I lay awake for hours. No answers, just questions, and one gut deep sense I couldn't shake. I was missing something, and whatever it was, it had already started. I started noticing patterns. Not the kind you can prove, just the kind that add up in your head like a string of numbers that doesn't quite make sense no matter how you try to solve it. Lila started taking longer showers, like unreasonably long, 25 minutes, 30. Sometimes I'd knock just to make sure she hadn't slipped and cracked her head on the tile. She'd laugh and say, "I'm just relaxing, babe," and I'd nod and tell myself to stop overthinking. But I'd still watch the clock. She also started going to the gym more. Not that it was new, she's always been health conscious, but now it was daily. And not just a quick session. 2 hours. Sometimes more. Always in the evening. Always after I'd settled in with dinner or started a show. She'd be heading out the door in matching workout sets like she was prepping for a photo shoot. I didn't say anything at first because it felt petty. But still, it lodged itself in the back of my mind like a splinter. Then there were the excuses. "I'm gonna meet Kelsey for coffee. There's a wellness workshop tonight. I signed up last minute. A new client wants to meet in person. Might be a long one." Always these little errands and activities that sounded just plausible enough. I never had a reason to question her until I started paying closer attention. One Saturday, she said she was heading to a yoga class across town and might grab lunch with a couple of girls from her client group. Something about the way she said it felt too rehearsed. So I glanced at the clock when she left. An hour later, I texted, "How's it going?" She replied, "Still at lunch, so good catching up with them." The thing is, I hadn't asked if she was at lunch. I hadn't said anything about it. That's when I realized she was answering a question I hadn't asked, like she was covering ground just in case. It was little things like that. Little moments where her story seemed too neat. One night, she got home, and I could smell cologne on her. Not mine. It wasn't strong, just a faint, unfamiliar scent. When I hugged her, I lingered for a second longer than usual, trying to place it. She pulled away gently and said she was tired. She went straight to the bathroom and locked the door behind her. I sat there on the edge of the bed and thought, this is not nothing. The weirdest part was how calm she seemed. Almost too calm. Like someone who had already rehearsed every move. Her phone never rang around me anymore, only buzzed. She didn't leave it out of her sight. She used to forget it on the charger for hours. Now it was always either in her hand or flipped face down within arm's reach. I told myself I was being paranoid. I kept reminding myself of everything we had. The years, the inside jokes, the quiet mornings, the road trips, the memories we built. But in between those reminders, I started feeling like a stranger in my own house. Like I was walking through someone else's life, when they were still pretending to share with me. I hadn't brought it up yet. I didn't know how. I didn't want to accuse her of something if I didn't have proof. But the suspicion had already settled into my chest like a weight. I was looking at her differently now. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't not. And once you start seeing the cracks, you can't unsee them. You just wait, quietly, for something to fall through. I didn't want to become that guy, the one pacing the hallway, checking the clock every 10 minutes, rereading text messages like they're encrypted. But somewhere between the late-night client meetings and the quick-shut laptop screens, I started slipping into that role without even realizing it. The tension wasn't just in my head anymore, it was in the air. It clung to the quiet moments. Lila had become more distant, but not in an obvious way. She still smiled, still asked how my day was, still curled up beside me on the couch like everything was fine. But her eyes weren't in it. Her words started feeling automatic, like she was going through the motions of being a wife without actually being there. A few nights ago, we were watching a movie, some light rom-com she picked, and I noticed she wasn't watching it at all. She was half scrolling on her phone, half texting someone, smirking quietly to herself. I asked who it was and she said, "Kelsey," almost too fast. I nodded, then asked what was so funny. She paused just long enough to make my stomach twist. "Oh, just something dumb she said about her boss." That's when I realized she hadn't even looked up the name. She didn't check the message thread before saying it was Kelsey. Just said it. Too smooth. Too polished. Like she had a list of safe answers and that one was already on top. I didn't press her. I just said, and looked back at the screen, though I couldn't tell you a single thing about that movie. I kept stealing glances at her phone, but I never caught a name on the screen. She'd tilt it slightly away from me, or tap it off the second I moved. It was eating at me. I started paying attention to the details I used to ignore. Her perfume was different some days, like she'd reapplied it hours after leaving the house. Her clothes were freshly changed when she got home from the gym, even though there was no sweat, no water bottle, no gym bag. Once, I casually asked what exercise she'd done that day. She hesitated and said cardio. That was it. Just cardio. No mention of the treadmill or a class or how crowded it was like she usually volunteered. That was all she said. Then she changed the subject. I started driving by her gym sometimes on my way home from work, not every day, just enough to tell myself I wasn't crazy. Twice, her car wasn't there. Once, it was parked at the strip mall down the street instead, near a juice bar that had already closed for the night. It felt like I was standing outside a locked room in my own house. I couldn't see what was behind the door, but I could hear the muffled sound of something happening. Something I wasn't meant to know. The worst part wasn't the suspicion. It was the doubt in myself. The wondering if I was being overly sensitive. Was I seeing shadows where there were none? Was I inventing patterns because I'd already convinced myself something was wrong? Or was I just late to the truth? I started having dreams where I'd walk into a room, and she'd be sitting on someone else's lap, laughing. Always the back of his head. Never a face. And she'd look at me and just say, "You weren't supposed to see this." I'd wake up in a sweat, the sheets tangled around me, heart pounding like I'd actually been running. She'd be asleep beside me, peaceful, like she didn't have a care in the world. And I'd just stare at the ceiling, wondering if she knew how close I was to unraveling everything. I wasn't supposed to hear it. That's the part that keeps looping in my head. I wasn't meant to be home that early. I wasn't meant to forget my wallet. And I definitely wasn't meant to walk back through that door just in time to catch her voice echoing down the hallway. It was late afternoon. I'd left work, got halfway to the grocery store, and realized I didn't have my wallet. I cursed under my breath, turned the car around, and headed back. I let myself in quietly, not expecting her to be home yet. But the minute I opened the front door, I heard her talking. Not loudly, just that kind of low, familiar murmur people use when they think they're safe. I wasn't trying to spy. That's the thing. I didn't tiptoe in or press my ear to the wall. I was halfway through the living room before I froze. Her voice was coming from the bedroom. The door was cracked. I could see her through the gap, sitting cross-legged on the bed in one of my old t-shirts, phone pressed to her ear. She hadn't heard me. And then I heard the name, Kelsey. That made me pause. I almost kept walking, almost called out, but then I heard her sister's voice, faint and sharp, and it stopped me cold. "I'm just saying, if you're going to keep seeing him, you need to be smarter about it." My chest tightened. Lila let out this little laugh, soft, like a secret. Relax. He doesn't suspect anything. He's completely clueless. Kelsey, he's not stupid. Lila. He notices more than you think. Lila. He thinks he notices. That's different. Trust me, he's still caught up in work and his boring little routines. I know how to handle him. Kelsey, just be careful. But seriously, if it makes you happy. I mean, why stop? You're not getting what you need from him anyway. And that was it. That was the moment. Not a suspicion. Not a hunch. Cold, clear confirmation. The truth I'd been circling for weeks, finally spoken out loud. My heart was pounding in my ears. I felt this rush of heat go through my whole body, rage, shock, disbelief, all fighting to take control. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stood there, staring through that crack in the door like I was watching someone else's life collapse. Lila leaned back on the bed, smiling like she didn't have a care in the world. He's sweet, she said. But he's just so dull lately. I need more than that. Kelsey, then don't feel guilty. You've always settled for less than you deserve. Lila, I'm not settling anymore. And just like that, I stepped back. I didn't make a sound. I didn't confront her. I backed out of the living room like I'd never been there at all. Quiet as a ghost. I sat in my car in the driveway for 10 minutes, shaking. She was cheating. With someone. And Kelsey, the woman I once thought of as family, was not only encouraging it, but helping her justify it. Telling her she deserved better. That I was somehow the problem. I wanted to scream. I wanted to walk back inside, throw open that door, and ask her who she was now. But I didn't. Because something in me shifted in that moment. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a one-time lapse in judgment. This was betrayal. Calculated, ongoing, supported. And now I knew. I finally knew. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there beside her, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling while she drifted off like nothing had changed. Her breathing slow, peaceful. Her back turned to me, like she always did when she was done talking for the day. She didn't know I'd heard everything. She didn't know I'd seen the mask slip. I was done guessing. Done doubting myself. I wanted proof. Not just because I needed to see it for myself, but because I knew the second I confronted her, she'd deny everything. She'd cry. She'd twist it. She'd say I misunderstood, say she was venting, say I was paranoid. But video doesn't lie. The next morning, I told her I had a big week coming up and would be staying late at work most nights. She smiled, touched my arm, told me not to overdo it. I'll have dinner ready when you get home, she said. I just nodded. What I didn't tell her was that I took the day off. I spent the entire morning researching hidden cameras. Ordered 2 on same-day delivery, small, motion-activated, disguised as a USB charger. One for the bedroom, one for the hallway outside. While I waited, I drove across town to a hardware store and picked up a spare doorbell cam, just in case. By the time she left for her client meeting, I was setting up the equipment. It felt surreal, walking through my own house like I was casing the place. But I had to know. I had to stop living in this in-between space where I knew something was wrong but had no solid ground to stand on. I wasn't just trying to catch her. I was trying to protect whatever shred of dignity I had left. That night, I told her I was working late and went to stay at my friend Chris's place across town. He owed me a favor, and I didn't want to be anywhere near home if something was going to happen. I checked the live feed from my laptop obsessively, but nothing happened. Just her in the kitchen, making tea, watching TV, sleeping alone. I almost convinced myself I'd overreacted. Almost. The second night, everything changed. I was watching the hallway feed when I saw the front door open. She stepped in smiling, light on her feet, followed by a man. Tall, dark jacket. No hesitation. They didn't even pause in the entryway. She laughed at something he said, took his hand, and led him straight down the hall. The bedroom door closed behind them. I didn't move for a full minute. My hands were sweating. My heart was pounding, not with surprise, but with rage. Rage because it was real. Rage because I knew it. Rage because she had no fear bringing him into my house, into our bed. I watched, jaw clenched, as they stayed in that room for over an hour. When the door finally opened, I saw them kiss. Casual. Intimate. Like it wasn't the first time. Like it wouldn't be the last. He left not long after. She stood at the door for a moment after closing it, barefoot, in one of my shirts. She checked her phone, smiled. Then she went to the bathroom and washed her face. I sat there in silence, staring at the screen, feeling something inside me finally go still. The suspicion was gone now. The guessing, the confusion, the benefit of the doubt. all replaced with something colder. Resolve. I backed up the footage, copied it to a secure drive, and started planning. The next day, I walked through the house like nothing was wrong. I kissed her on the cheek before leaving for work. She asked if I wanted her to make that chicken stir-fry I liked. I said sure. That night would be her last night under this roof, because I had seen what I needed to see. And tomorrow? She was going to see it too. The next day, I woke up calm. Too calm, if I'm honest. There was this strange stillness in my chest, like my body had finally caught up to what my mind already knew. I moved through the morning like I was playing a part. Made the coffee. Let the dog out. Kissed her on the forehead as she stood in the kitchen scrolling through her phone. She smiled at me like nothing had happened. Like everything was normal. She had no idea that the night before, I had watched her bring another man into our home. Into our bed. The bed we chose together at that little furniture shop upstate, the one we couldn't afford at the time but bought anyway. Now, that bed was a crime scene. And she thought I was still in the dark. I didn't go to work. Instead, I waited until she left for hers. Then I got to work. I dragged her suitcase from the closet, the one she used when she visited her sister. I filled it with her clothes, quickly, coldly. Not carefully. Just shoved them in. Jeans, blouses, workout gear. I didn't bother folding anything. I grabbed everything she kept in the bathroom and dumped it into a grocery bag. Her makeup, her serums, her vitamins labeled energy and focus. All of it. Then I opened the windows in the living room. It was a chilly day, but I didn't care. I wanted the air to change. I wanted the wind to carry out the last of her lies. I waited for her to come home. I didn't text her. Didn't call. Just sat in the chair by the front door with the flash drive in my hand and her suitcase at my feet. When I heard the car pull up, my hands didn't shake. I thought they would. I expected to feel something more than the quiet fury humming in my chest. But I didn't. She walked in with that fake smile still glued to her face. "Hey babe," she said. "I grabbed that wine you like." I stood up slowly and looked her in the eye. I didn't even raise my voice. "Sit down." Her face twitched, just slightly, and she froze. "What's wrong?" I didn't answer. I walked over to the TV, plugged in the flash drive, and hit play. She watched herself, laughing, walking into the bedroom with him, her hand in his. The bedroom door closing. For a second, she didn't react. Like her brain couldn't process what she was seeing. Then came the denial. "Wait, this isn't what it looks like. He just came over to talk." I didn't. "You can stop," I said, cutting her off. "You don't get to talk. You don't get to explain. You don't get to lie anymore." She started to cry. Of course she did. Tears like flipping a switch. "Please, it was a mistake. I didn't mean for this to happen." I picked up her suitcase and walked to the window. "You see this?" I threw it open and tossed the bag right onto the front lawn. "That's your stuff. You've got 5 minutes to get out of my house." She started to move toward me, hands out like I might soften. "Please, can we just talk? I made a mistake." "You made choices," I snapped. "You made them again and again. Don't stand in front of me and call them mistakes." I grabbed the rest of her things and threw them out the window, one bag after another. She flinched at each thud like it physically hurt. She kept begging, half sobbing, half pleading, but I didn't budge. "And while we're at it," I added, "don't bother calling your sister. She won't be much help." That stopped her. "What do you mean?" "I sent the video to her too," I said, "so she can see exactly what she was defending. Maybe she'll stop calling me clueless now." She stood there, frozen, mascara streaking down her face. Her mouth was open, but no words came out. "There's nothing left here for you," I told her. No apology, no excuse, no chance. She finally moved toward the door, stopping once to look back. Maybe she thought I'd change my mind, that I'd break, that I'd remember who we used to be. But I didn't. The door closed behind her. I locked it. And then I made one last call, to my friend Derek. Kelsey had been working at his company for 2 years. I told him what she said, what she knew, what she enabled. I sent him the audio. He didn't ask many questions. Just said, "I'll handle it." 2 hours later, she was fired. I'm not proud of the rage I felt. But I am proud of this. I didn't let either of them walk away clean. I gave them exactly what they earned. Tomorrow, I talk to the lawyer. Tonight, I sleep alone, for the first time in years, with the door locked and the silence finally honest. The silence the next morning was different. Not the kind that makes you feel peaceful. Not the kind that lets you breathe. This was the kind that hangs in the corners of a house like smoke after a fire. Everything was still in place, but nothing felt the same. It wasn't just that she was gone. It was that her presence had turned to residue. I woke up alone and didn't rush to do anything. I just sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor for a while. No sounds from the kitchen. No clinking of mugs or hum of the electric kettle. No voice humming badly along to her morning playlist. Just the faint ticking of the wall clock. I made coffee the same way I always do, but it tasted different. Bitter, metallic. Like the air in the house had changed its chemistry overnight. I wasn't sure if it was grief or relief. Maybe both. Probably both. A few messages had already come in. One from Lila, of course. Just a string of text bubbles that ranged from begging to bargaining. Please talk to me. I can explain. You're being cruel. You're throwing everything away. I didn't read past that. I blocked her number, then moved on. There was a missed call from Kelsey too. That one I didn't expect. She didn't leave a voicemail, but a few hours later I got a long, all-caps message from an unknown number. It was her. Furious. Ranting about how I humiliated her, that she was just trying to be a supportive sister, and how dare I mess with her livelihood. I didn't even respond. There's no point arguing with someone who thinks consequences are cruelty. I forwarded the whole thread to Derek just to close the loop. He responded, "She's not coming back here, don't worry." That was enough. The rest of the day, I tried to keep my mind busy. Laundry, cleaning, anything to fill the space. But the weight of it still pressed down at the strangest times. I'd go to throw something in the hamper and find one of her socks. Or I'd open a drawer and see her hair ties in the corner. Tiny leftovers of a life that no longer belonged to me. Around mid-afternoon, I finally called my lawyer. Told him everything. Sent him the video. He was calm, clinical. Said we had enough for a strong divorce filing. Infidelity, emotional distress, hidden behavior. I told him I wanted to file immediately, and I didn't want any settlement discussions. She didn't deserve a cent more than the law forced me to give. He asked if I had any questions. I had one. How fast can this move? He said it depends, but it wouldn't be dragged out if she didn't fight it. If she did, then we'd push harder. After the call, I sat on the couch and stared at the front door. I kept waiting for it to open, for her to come back and try one more time. I was almost surprised when it stayed shut. Later that night, I took a walk. Just needed to get out of that house. The walls still whispered her name in certain spots. I passed a couple walking their dog, and the guy had his arm around the woman's shoulders. She leaned into him and laughed. I didn't feel jealous. I didn't even feel angry. Just tired. Tired of pretending everything had been fine for so long. Tired of being the only one in the relationship who believed in it. When I got home, I stood in the bedroom doorway for a long time before I walked in. The bed was still messy from the night before. I stripped the sheets, took the pillows, and carried everything out to the curb. I wasn't going to sleep in that bed again. Not one more night. I laid down on the couch, pulled a blanket over myself, and stared out the window at the dark sky. I thought of all the nights I had second-guessed myself, all the times I told myself I was overreacting. And then I thought of the moment I saw her with him. That's when I whispered out loud, to no one but myself, "You were right." And that was the first time I slept through the night in weeks. It's been almost 3 weeks since I kicked her out. 21 days of silence where her voice used to be. No footsteps down the hall. No phone lighting up the room at midnight. No forced laughter drifting from the other side of the couch. The house feels bigger now. Not emptier, wider. Like there's finally space for me to breathe again. I boxed up everything that belonged to her. Clothes, shoes, books she never read, old gifts from friends I never met. Even the stupid ceramic bowl she swore brought good energy into the kitchen. It's all sitting in the garage, waiting for someone else to deal with it. She asked if she could come by to pick it up. I told her to send someone else. I'm done seeing her face. The divorce is moving quickly. My lawyer called yesterday. She didn't contest. No fight. No delay. Just signed the papers like it was an invoice. That hit me harder than I expected. You spend years with someone, build a life brick by brick, and in the end it comes undone with a signature. A scribbled name, and it's like it never mattered. But I'm not bitter. I won't let myself be. The rage I felt in the beginning, that deep, burning anger that made me throw her bags out the window and watch her flinch as her lies collapsed around her, it's faded now. What's left is something colder, something quieter, clarity. I see her for what she is. I see her sister for what she is. And I see myself, finally, for who I've become through all of this. I'm not the same man who kissed her at the altar. That man was soft around the edges, full of faith, ready to trust without a second thought. That man believed loyalty was a given if you loved hard enough. That man doesn't exist anymore. But I don't miss him. I've learned that love alone doesn't keep people honest. That kindness isn't always reciprocated. That trust, once broken, doesn't heal, it scars. And I've learned that your gut is never wrong. You just talk yourself out of listening. I've started running again. Every morning, just me and the pavement. No music, no distractions. Just the rhythm of my breath and the sound of my feet hitting the ground. It's meditative in a way. Like I'm shedding the weight of the past one step at a time. I reconnected with some friends I lost touch with over the years. Turns out a few of them suspected something was going on but didn't know how to tell me. I don't blame them. Would I have listened? I've started looking at new places to live. I know I said I'd never leave this house, but the truth is, it's soaked with memories I don't want anymore. I want new walls, new routines, a space that doesn't remind me of betrayal every time I walk into a room. The cameras are gone. I took them down myself. Not because I don't want to protect myself anymore, but because I don't want to live like I'm waiting to be stabbed in the back again. I want peace, not paranoia. And her? She's still messaging from different numbers, different email accounts. Can we talk? Please just let me explain. I miss you. I don't even open them anymore. They go straight to the archive. She doesn't get my time. Not anymore. Some nights are still hard. I won't lie. Some mornings I wake up and for half a second forget that she's not in the house, and then it hits me all over again. But those moments are fewer now. And when they come, they don't break me. I just breathe, stand up, and keep going. What comes next? I don't know. Maybe a fresh start. Maybe just quiet. But whatever it is, it'll be mine. Not shared with someone who smiled in my face while sneaking around behind my back. Not built on half-truths and whispered phone calls. The worst is over. And I'm still here. Standing.